Interesting, Joe, too, that Hannity, they took the speech for a while and then at some point decided they'd seen enough and cut away. Now, it was scheduled for about 30 minutes. It went well over an hour, as all of his speeches do. But at some point, even Sean Hannity said, OK, I think we got it.
Yeah, he pulled away. I guess CNN pulled away about 20, 25 minutes into it. None of the major networks carried it. I don't think MSNBC carried it. We're not showing the clips this morning, not to make any point, but just because it's not interesting. We've heard it all before. And it was just a bunch of grievances, a bunch of lies. So really, why even play it?
Especially, I mean, there's so many different legal stories to cover. And Alan Weisselberg in court, testifying in court, basically against Trump, flipping.
Yeah.
So this is a man clearly desperate to try and get back into the political fray and possibly do something to protect himself legally, whether it's create a firestorm, call it a witch hunt. But it doesn't really feel like the last time around, that's for sure. It doesn't feel like everybody's there for him.
It doesn't, and also there's the issue of relevance, right? Like, how relevant is Donald Trump now?
Well, he's relevant because
in 2016
the midterms were a
he
mess.
was relevant. But after every one of his candidates, or almost all of his candidates, lose, and it shows that he just doesn't have power. Look at that. Of course, we've talked about the Senate candidates have lost, but look at those House candidates. There were, I believe, 5 to 6 swing seat districts that Donald Trump endorsed. He went 0 for 6. There is, of course, at the end, Joe Kent, who was put up, who was an extreme MAGA candidate, who was supposed to replace a congresswoman who voted for Donald Trump's impeachment. Peter Meyer, another person who was replaced by John Gibbs, I think is his name. Yep. John Gibbs, a man who wanted to do away with women's right to vote. He lost. You look at the governors that Donald Trump supported who lost. It's an absolute nightmare for the Republican Party. Hard to believe that after losing, following Trump in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2022, that they will follow him again in 2024. But if they do follow him again in 2024, there will be a lot of people in the Biden White House who will be happy because they will know that Donald Trump will lose yet again. Doris, let's expand our view here a bit away just from Donald Trump, away from the presidency. And let me just ask you to take a look at what happened over the past week. It is extraordinary. We've seen even the most successful presidents, Ronald Reagan, his party got beaten badly in 82 and 86. Barack Obama's got beaten terribly in 2010 and 2014. Of course, it just seems to happen historically. It didn't happen this last week. Can you put it in perspective for us historically, what we saw this past week?
I think when history looks at this election, they're going to start with the fact that President Trump was not willing to accept the loss originally in 2020. And then the January 6th attack was a way of keeping that loss from being real. And then you see the hearings that came out in the summer, and they told us what had really happened. People knew something was wrong. Something was wrong with the chaos, that they were worried nobody was going to accept elections. The election officials are the heroes of this election, right? I mean, the election deniers are out there, but they had an extraordinary election. They went against people attacking them, and they came and they worked day in and day out. So there's this overall sense of people knowing that something's wrong. And they went to the polls. They said 44% went to the polls because they thought democracy was at issue. That's what we can't really forget. That's something larger that happened than what we're talking about right now with his announcement. And then President Biden used the bully pulpit to give direction to that democracy. You've got to vote against these people who don't accept an election. And every single one of those major deniers lost. And that means that the system held. And I think now that people feel a sense that the system is held, history is going to say that we can move forward in a way that we were worried about the chaos. That chaos may not be there. President Trump doesn't have the same power that he did when he was leading a group of people who were saying that the whole system is corrupt. The system proved itself this time. It went against people's short-term ambitions. Every now and then you get a generation that comes up, and young people voted in record numbers. They voted for democracy. That means they were willing to put their short-term needs about inflation and the economy against the larger-term abstract thing that democracy matters. And every now and then you get a generation like that. That was the Rendezvous with Destiny with FDR. It was John Kennedy talking about do something for your country and not just for yourself. It was Obama giving that sense of hope for the future. And when that happens, something's happened in the country. And I think that's the most important thing. We need to take a sense of contagious excitement from that democracy was on the ballot. The president helped direct it toward us, but the people themselves came through. And the reason they did this time, it was the first time that they got to vote. After 2020, after the January 6th, after the hearings, they were on the ballot finally, and the people came through. And that's what I think we should be talking about today. That's the celebration. The system held, and the people spoke their minds, and they voted for something larger than what we thought they would, inflation and economics. They voted for their country. And that, to me, is the most exciting thing. And I think that history will celebrate that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, when I'm not around.